Good afternoon, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, give all praises the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray that the Most High blesses this lesson today and gives better understanding of the events of the past in order to understand the events that are currently happening on the earth, in order to get a better understanding of what's about to come on the earth. Today I want to talk about this one subject that has been on my mind for the last couple of years. And Brother Ayul tackled the subject yesterday about marriages. And I was going to give my take on it. And this is how it should be as far as how Hebrews work. Even if you disagree, you can, do it with respect. We're all coming from these different topics from our own unique experiences. And, Brother Ayul will have his take on a certain subject, and I might have something that might be a little bit different. And on this subject, our, takes or our opinions here differ somewhat a little bit. But like I said, I still respect the brother and respect everything that he does. And we're in agreement with the vast majority of everything. And that's how it should be in this community. It kind of seems like with the Hebrews, it's like either you're 100% agree with absolutely everything that I say, or we can't go together. We are, as a people, coming out of a hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression. We have been lied to about everything, that you really have to scrutinize pretty much everything that you hear. So the whole thing, even with marriages, the thing with this is this: when the Most High reestablishes us, He's going to establish our society however it is that He wants to. All I can do is look back at history and look at how our society was before we had all these outside influences. And then what I'm going to talk about mainly is the fact that the Gentiles have brought their ideology and set up an entire society on their ideology. And now we are coming back into our heritage and understanding, but it's not compatible with the society that we live in. See, that's all part of the restoration of the land. That's all part of it. As we get our land and we're restored, then we can begin to practice, the different things that we used to do. Practice, the way we used to run our society. So we must look at the subject through our Hebrew culture. And it's really difficult because it's been so difficult because we have been ingrained with this Gentile culture that even when we came into this truth, we try to then bring the Hebrew culture and try to make it compatible with the Gentile culture that we live in. And as we see, you can't. And so the same thing even with marriages, we have been, and it's been put in our minds since, day one, that it's been one man, one wife. And we've just been given that, and it's just been bombarded on us this entire time. But we can't just ignore our ancestors. And we also must understand that not everything is talked about in the books that we've been given. Today we're going to look at a different book that I think many of you have probably not heard of before. It's actually one of my favorite books, and it's called the Acts of Paul and Thecla. And that really kind of helped to kind of shape my opinion as far as marriages are concerned. But before I kind of give you my opinion, let me first tell you a little bit about my situation and the point of view that I'm coming from. I've been married to the same woman for over 26 years. I've also was with her in high school. So I've been with the same woman for around 30 years. So, if anyone's going to say, yes, one man, one woman, you would think it would be someone from my point of view. I have a wonderful, wonderful wife who's supported me through thick and thin, through absolutely everything. And she's been there for me through the ups and through the downs and everything else. So, the Most High knew what he was going to bless me with, because he knew what journey he was going to put me on. And he gave me a wife that has been supportive through all of that. Okay? Now, even with that, I still do not believe in only a one man, one woman relationship. Not all the time. Okay? So let me explain this to you, and then I'll kind of show you. Okay? I believe that in some cases, well, hold on, let me backtrack. The Most High deals with us all differently. If you look at the parable of the talents, he gave some of the Hebrews 5 talents, or some of the people 5 talents, some 3, some 1. We're not all the same. The Most High doesn't deal with everyone the same. So to say a one-size-fits-all aspect, that's not what's in the scriptures. We're always talking about look in the scriptures, look what the Bible says, look in the scriptures. I'm looking at actions in the scriptures. And it's not necessarily always a one-size-fits-all doctrine, especially when it comes to marriages. Okay? Because if you just look even at the people that the Most High, he made a covenant with Abraham. Abraham was married to one woman. She passed away. He had another woman, but he also had concubines, which was barely talked about in Genesis. Okay, so we don't know exactly what was going on over the course of his life, but they just gave us a little glimpse into his personal life, and he had concubines as well. We look at Isaac, and from what we can tell, he had one wife. But then you go to Jacob, and he had 4 wives. It didn't say anything about it all, being bad or wrong or whatever else. That's just the way that the Hebrew culture was. Now, when you skip over to David, David had 8 or 9 wives, but Uriah had only one, Bathsheba. You see, and people are always, well, if you have multiple wives, it's going to lead to a lot of issues. Well, you can have issues with just one wife. You can have issues with multiple wives. Whatever it is that the Most High has set up for your life is what's going to happen, no matter how many wives or children or whatever else that you have. Okay? So I'm looking at it from that perspective. And in Samuel 12, it also says, yes, if you wanted more wives, I would have given them to you. For David, maybe for David's situation, that was one thing. I remember from what I see from what I was reading, was like David was marrying other Hebrew women in order to keep the nation together. But that Solomon was marrying other women from different nations in order to keep like the whole entire kingdom together, with other nations and treaties and things like that. The biggest thing what I see is that the men and the husbands and the wives, when they come together, are supposed to be serving the Most High. It's when you have multiple wives and you have multiple situations where the women are pulling you from different directions and keeping you away from the Most High. Now, that also works the other way. If a woman ends up marrying, a Gentile, but not only that, what about if it's a Hebrew who's not in the truth? What's the difference between a Gentile and a Hebrew not in the truth? Neither of them are going to teach you. Neither of them are going to lead you. So it can go both ways. It's not always just, the wives leading, the men astray, but the men also lead the women astray. So that's like one of the biggest things. And what you have to understand is this: Hebrew women are the cream of the crop. They are the best of the best in all aspects: beauty, intelligence, spirituality, everything. He always talks about that in Exodus, about how when they're trying to kill the children, and they're like, the Hebrew women aren't like other women. They are the backbone of our society. Okay? I recognize that, and I know that. I said because without great Hebrew women, us Hebrew men cannot do anything without our great Hebrew women. I totally understand that, and I totally agree with that. What you have to understand is that a lot of this one man, one woman doctrine was also brought into our nation, into our culture by the Gentiles. The reasons they brought that in was because they wanted their opportunity to have our women. Like I said, in the past, when you look in the scriptures, you got examples of men, Hebrew men being with one woman. You have examples of some Hebrew men being with multiple women. So culturally, that seemed to have been acceptable. Now, when we started listening to Gentiles, they started trying to come in and teach us things. All of a sudden, they're the ones who push the one man, one woman doctrine. And this is what happens when Gentiles try to come in and force us to follow their ways. Okay? Now, like I said, I know some people are going to disagree, and it's cool. We don't have to agree. And even some of the people who are on the channel, it's okay. We don't have to agree. The thing is that just be respectful with one another. Eventually, the only person's opinion that matters is the Most High's. And when He comes back and reestablishes everything, He's going to set up the kingdom the way He wants to. But what I'm going to show you is how, historically, what the Gentiles have been doing is they knew, okay, our women knew better than to go with Gentiles. They knew not to go with Gentiles. So the Gentiles would have to, if they wanted to be with our women, they would have to make a society that was conducive to making their men look more desirable than us Hebrew men. You see? And this is exactly what has happened. Is that they have formed a society that has now made Hebrew men less desirable for our women. And many of our women will now fight to maintain a society that has kept the Hebrew men at the bottom. Okay? But this is what happens when Gentiles take our scriptures and act like they're theirs. They create mass confusion. And that's exactly what has happened. And this started with the Greeks. We're going to read real quick Maccabees 1 and 41. Maccabees 1 and 41. When they forced us to leave our culture and start to follow their Greek culture. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem, and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars in groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law, and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Okay? This is what happens when Gentiles start to reign over us, especially the Greeks and the Romans. They have now started to take our books and act like they were theirs. They wanted us to conform to their laws, and they wanted us to conform to the way that they saw society and life. Okay? So this all started with the Greeks, and it continued with the Romans, and it has continued again here with the revived Roman laws. Now, They're the ones who set up the one man, one woman doctrine. And I pretty much have learned, I hope you guys learn too, pretty much if they set it up, I'm looking the opposite direction. Okay? If it one man, one woman's doctrine started with them, I'm going to pretty much venture to say that's probably not true. But that's just me. Okay? I'm not making this video for you to agree or disagree or whatever else. I'm just telling you what I've seen and what I've studied, and I'm going to share it with you. You make your own decisions as far as that's concerned. Okay? Because ultimately, this isn't part of salvation. This is just, hey, this is what I believe. This is what I've seen. This is what I've studied. I'm going to share some things from other books that maybe you haven't seen before. And you can just kind of make your own, formulate your own opinion. Many people will just, they're going to be hardcore, hey, one man, one woman, and that's it. And that's okay. That's what you want to believe. That's cool. You know, I'm just going to show you that I don't, in every situation is different. For some Hebrews, one man, one woman works for them. For some Hebrews, it's going to be, you're not going to be married at all. You're going to be by yourself. Might be a man by himself, might be a woman by herself. Okay? And in some situations, it might be one man with multiple wives. It all depends on what the Most High sets up. See, what's happened is we kind of got into the truth, and a lot of these men, yes, they took the, hey, I can have multiple wives, and they just ran with it. That's not for everybody. I think the world's population is like this 52% men, 48% women. So even the way the Most High set it up, there's still a little, there's actually, no, 52% women, 48% men. So there's still a little bit more women than men. If the Most High wanted it just one man, one woman, he would have made it 50-50. See, the Most High, he shows you what he wants, even by all these different, these different things that we look at. He sets up society, he sets up population the way that he has set things up. So like I said, it's not some ridiculously huge number like it's 75% women and 25% men. No, it's just a little bit more as far as women than are men, because some men will have more than one wife, some will have one and one, some might not have any. It all depends on whatever the Most High has sent you here for and whatever mission he has set up for each individual person. Esau is always like, they're the ones that deal, Edomites and a lot of Gentiles deal with absolutes. Like, all black people are from Ham. All white people, they teach that are Edomites. All Asians are Moabites. You can't do that because that's not how things work. The Most High doesn't deal with this like always in absolutes just like that. Okay? So that's why I said that it all depends on the situation. And it depends on the individual. For some people, however, he might set it up where you're married to one person. For other people, he might set it up where you have multiple wives. It just all depends on how the Most High wants this. Now, let's continue. Because like I said, this whole one man, one wife thing really pushed, like it's like an absolute thing. That's Gentiles have set that up. Greeks, Romans, revived Roman Empire. That's their society. But we all know that's not what they believe. So why would they set that up? Because I said, did they believe one man, one wife when they were had us enslaved, and they were going out? They had their wife in the house, but they were coming out to the slave quarters and sleeping with our women. Do they believe one man, one wife then, when he could come in and sleep with my wife whenever he wanted to in front of me? Did he believe one man, one woman then? Right? When he was raping our children, was raping our daughters, raping our sons, did he believe in one man, one wife then? Of course not, because he doesn't believe in that. All it was a ploy to, so he could do whatever he wanted to do with our women, but then make laws against us doing anything, having any rights. That's all that it's been about. It's always been about you women. It's always about the Gentiles having access to our women. That's what this whole thing has been set up for. Because, now trust me, you think that when they got over here, when the Most High brought Columbus over here and he bring all these Gentiles over here, do you think they believed in one man, one wife when they stepped off the boat? When they were raping our women? No. So why is it so important that they push that kind of garbage in our churches all the time? Why they push that to our people all the time. How they selectively enforce laws like that. See, like I said, when they got here, they saw our beautiful women, and they couldn't wait because they knew these people are now in our hands. We can do whatever we want. We can make laws. And except before, our women would never go with these Gentiles. But they had to make it so society was more, made their men more desirable than ours. So like I said, when they got here, they saw all these beautiful women, and they wouldn't go with them on their own. Okay, so they were having to be forced, right? No. And I've read one account of where they abducted one woman and took her, a young girl, and took her on a ship. And one of the shipmates there was trying to rape her, and she fought back. And the guy, I think, whipped her almost to the edge of her life because she knew not to have sex with these Gentiles. Just allow, just anybody have sex with her. Okay. And they just beat her, and eventually she succumbed, and and he ended up raping her. How many of our? But did they believe one man, one woman then? Or when our people were actually working out in the mines, and they would come home, and the boss would feel like, hey, you didn't bring home enough gold or whatever else. So this is actually, I want to say, in the it's either in American Holocaust or Dogs of the Conquest. He would then tie the men up, shackle them, throw them under the bed, and then rape his wife on the bed while he's stuck underneath the bed. Do they believe in one man, one wife at that time? No. You imagine that? Just imagine you being shackled, shoved under your bed, and this dude's raping your wife on top of you. So do they believe in one man, one wife at that time? No. All these things were set up for them to have their way with our women. Now I'm going to show you, we're going to listen to a video from Jacqueline Batalora. And what I'll do is she's talking about the laws that were set up to pretty much emasculate the Hebrew men and to elevate the Gentile men. Because when it's one man, one wife, now these women were going to be looking for a man that could take care of them, for a man that could provide for them. That's why the society is set up this way. So if you're a Hebrew woman and you're allowed to only have one husband, and your Hebrew men are at the bottom, they can't protect you, they can't provide for you, who are you going to go to? Now you can start to see why they set these laws up this way. Why they push that one man, one woman doctrine so much. It's in order for them to continue to have their way with our women all the way up till today. Let me get this video going so we can listen to it real quick. What I'll do is I'll leave this video in the description box, and it's called "Birth of a White Nation," and it's we're going to listen to this first part. It's about a minute and a half or something like that. Okay. All right. Let me go over here.
The law prohibited both white men and white women from marrying a person of African descent or a member of a native tribe. But lest I leave you thinking that gender equality was being created in this law, let me quickly dispel that. Studies of antebellum courts reveal that, in fact, anti-miscegenation law was that, at least in the language of the law, prohibited these marriages for white men and white women. But here's what we know from antebellum court cases. We know that plenty of white men married and or engaged in intimate sexual relations with prohibited women. However, very rarely were they brought to court and punished under the anti-miscegenation law. Very rarely. So here Pay attention to
So they set up laws, one man, one woman. They set up laws that white men and white women could not be with, you say, Negro men or Native American men. Okay, so as you can see who they're targeting, right? But the white men could still go ahead and do whatever they wanted to our women, but they were never prosecuted. So like I told you, this is all about access to our women. That's what this is all about. The women not having any men around to take care of them and any men that can provide for them or protect them. And that's what this has all been set up for. And this goes all the way back to the Greeks, continues with the Romans. And then the Europeans brought that same thought process and that same part of their culture over here. Let's continue.
this law in its enforcement is largely focused on controlling the relationality and the sexuality of white women and non-white men. Furthermore, think about the enforcement practices that come out of this particular law. What's the result? Who becomes more available for who? We see a further step in locating patriarchal power squarely among and within white men. We've talked about the law of...
Okay. Making white men more desirable. That's what all this is. See, before it was talking about, I want to say in the early 1600s in this, oh, let me get my paper here. There was a law, 1664, one man, one woman. It was something to the extent of pretty much like if a white woman married a slave, she became a slave herself for her entire life. And their children, so if like a white woman wanted to marry a Negro slave, this is what happened, okay? And if they had children, that their children will become slaves until they were 20. Now, apparently they said that the the people who were actually running the plantations liked that idea, so they were encouraging that. Now, you got to think about this. A free white woman would be willing to marry a slave and become a slave herself. That doesn't sound very marketable, but apparently that was happening, and that was a problem. So they had to make up other laws, okay? And you watch the rest of the video. You know, they had to kind of change it up a little bit and change up different things, but they must have had issues with still white women wanting to be with a black man as far as who was enslaved. So you're trying to say then that a free woman would much rather be with a slave and be enslaved than to be with another free white man? So like I said, even in our lowest state, our men were still desirable to other women. And this must have been a real blow to the manhood of many of these Gentiles. So they had to continue making other laws to suppress our desirability, from other people, from other women. So then they make this law as well, where they pretty much raise the patriarchal power to the white man. Okay, so they're going out of their way to, like I said, this is the whole thing. You can only have one man, okay, but we're going to make sure we make your men as least desirable as possible. That's what you're seeing. Okay, this is what's going to be the next part they're going to be talking about right here, the divide and conquer. This kind of happens after Bacon's rebellion, and they're having to break up the low-class whites and the low-class blacks, and they start making up these different laws. But this all goes back, like I said, to the one man, one woman marriage doctrine. Like I said, this is all coming from the Europeans, because what we're going to hear about next is coming from the whole thought process is coming from Britain. And so they're bringing a lot of these British ideas over here to the Americas. He said, were our people practicing this before? I've read of stories called Buffalo Hunt, and it was talking about how it was talking about the story about the Native Americans that lived on the plains, and they pretty much lived off of the buffalo. Well, some of the men had one wife, some of them had multiple wives. It depended upon how good of a hunter he was. If he was a really good hunter, he had more wives. If he wasn't as good of a hunter, he had maybe one or none. Oh, I'm not sure exactly how they figured all that out, but it was based off of his hunting skills, what he could provide. Now, if we owned the entire continent here and we didn't want for anything, then we could provide for our women, for our wives or wife, whatever it is that we had, and our children. Okay, when they took all of our resources away, our land away, they took away our ability to provide for our families. And then they gave it to the other Gentile men in order to elevate them, in order to make them more desirable. And this is actually still going on even till today. Okay. Now we're going to listen to another part of this video. And we're going to start about the 22-minute mark. And it's going to go to about the 28-minute mark. Okay. This is actually really, really good, really important. I mean, there's a lot of good information in here. And I'm having to see here. My Wi-Fi is working very slow. Almost there. Okay. Here we go.
Continued to get passed into the first quarter of the next century. The first slew of laws included the prohibition of free blacks from holding public office,
right here.
the prohibition of blacks and native tribal members from marrying whites, the requirement that whites, upon completion of their terms of service, be paid goods including guns and gunpowder, a prohibition of free blacks possessing a weapon. We're going to come back to that. The prohibition of blacks testifying against whites. These laws began to give different meaning to these labels that prior to this moment just referenced where your nation of origin was. Not anymore. I want to return quickly to a law that prohibited free blacks from possessing a weapon. What this law did was essentially strip free black men of their ability to hold patriarchal power. Because look,
it emasculated our people. It emasculated our men. If we're not allowed to have firearms, we now cannot protect our families, which then goes in the way of making our people, our men especially, even less desirable. Because now we can't protect you. Now, if a white man wants to come in and he has a gun and I don't, he now can just walk in my house, rape you, rape my daughter, and I can't do anything about it. So do you think then that our women are going to want to be with us? No. They're going to want to be with someone who can protect them. Now you're seeing how this is all working out and all this is playing out? Let's continue.
Look, under the law of coverture, here's how things worked. Men were in control, controlled women, their spouse, controlled their children, and had legal authority to do so, including severe beatings, all financial assets and land. The man had the control, but the exchange was that in exchange for that authority, he protects.
So in exchange for us, having the authority over our household, the trade-off is that we have to protect our family. Well, how can we protect our family if we're not allowed to have any weapons to protect our family with? You see that? The emasculation of the Hebrews to make us less desirable. So if our women wanted to be protected and they were only legally allowed to be with one man, who are they going to go to? Someone that can protect them. It hasn't been an accident that we've gotten to this point. How we've been moved to the bottom, made less desirable. Let's continue.
That's the trade-off for patriarchal power. Stripped, made impossible by virtue of this law. And then let's look at this law that prohibited blacks from testifying against whites. We will see that throughout U.S. history. Mexicans prohibited from testifying against whites, Chinese prohibited from testifying against whites, and then it just becomes mongrels, the label, to include persons of Japanese descent and the like. So that's a law that we see throughout U.S. history. When you look at these laws, what's the message to white people? Each one of these laws has a message to this new group of people called white folks, on the one hand, and a message to those who it denies or restricts on the other. Each one of them. This package of laws, first passed after Bacon's Rebellion, did something extraordinary. Let's imagine that that light up there represents the landholding elite, the 1%. And this represents the socioeconomic ladder in the colony, okay? And so this hand over here represents this new group of laborers called white ones. And this hand over here represents laborers of African descent and members of native tribes. Before Bacon's Rebellion and through it, these laborers had the same lives, faced the same opportunities, and that changed. But when you look at these laws that passed that created this change, it divided these, created different meaning for this group versus this group. But it didn't do a whole lot to lift the economic status of white people closer to that of the white elites. Very little movement up. What it did do was it plummeted the bottom, created a new bottom to colonial society, and shoved persons of African descent and members of native tribes there. So let's look at this group of humanity called white people. We learn from this history that white people were built upon the idea that British had of themselves as white, as Christian, as freeborn, as deserving of rights and privileges from which others can be denied. To this day, white...
Now, like I said, these are British ideas. These are European or Gentile ideas that they brought over here. So then they've been teaching their British ideas and things like that this entire time. They're teaching you one man, one woman, but then they're making it so that our people or our men are less desirable. So that then, like I said, our women are the best women. But now our women don't want to be with us. They want to be with men like them. They want to be with the Gentiles because they are now portrayed as the patriarchal hierarchy, the best of the best. If you want a real man, you're going to get with a Gentile. If you want to make it in this society, you're going to get with a Gentile. If you women want to be with we want to move up in this world, you need to marry a Gentile. Let's continue.
People have not been defined as a matter of law to this day. This history teaches us that white is the tool by which laborers were divided. Those who shared the same living conditions, the same opportunities, now experience ourselves as more connected with Paris Hilton than with our African American neighbor, even though our economic status is far more similar to that neighbor than to the lives of the 1%. But not only did this new organization of society create a new bottom to it, it created a link that heretofore had not existed that connected this new group of laborers called white people with the elite. And what was that connection? This shared status called white, embedded with the presumption of its superiority. The other thing to note about the invention of white people. And the meaning of white that this history reveals is that white constituted the center of patriarchal power. And
that was the main point right there, that whites or Gentiles now became the patriarchal center of power. If you wanted a real man who can provide for you, you need to get with a Gentile. So this all goes back to access to our women. They've been wanting access to our women since they've been around us. And now, through this setup, our women were willingly going to the Gentiles. So they're telling you all the time, no, 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 no. One man, one woman, that's it. They didn't even believe that because they were still sleeping with their women as well as ours. They're still having sex with our women when they passed laws that says they couldn't, because it's all been about access to our women. Understand this, when the Most High restores us, they're not staying. Their laws are not staying. Their breakdowns of our scriptures are not staying. If the Most High allowed some of our people to have multiple wives, unless he changes the whole game, which he could, but that was part of our culture before. If he had some of our men with one wife, that was part of our culture. So like I said, so it's not necessarily even a disagreement. It's I believe that there are different things going on here. There's not a one size fits all. And it all kind of depends on the situation that each individual is afforded by the Most High. Okay? Because like I said, when he removes these Gentiles from our lands, he's also going to remove their interpretations of society, their interpretations of our scriptures. All that information is going to be gone. And we're going to go back to the original culture that we had. Now, I want to share a little bit here of one of my favorite books here. It's not the entire story, but it's a little bit of it. Eventually, we're going to be working our way here to, to the Paul and Thecla story. But we got to remember who's given us these, who gave us a one man, one woman doctrine, who really pushed that on us. That was the Greeks, the Romans, revived Roman Empire. Just remember who these people are. They used to cut the fetus out of our queens and had bets on who would die first, the baby or the mother. I can't forget and never will. Just remember who's given us these ideas, who's given us these breakdowns. Remember, also, you have to understand which books, they're giving us and which ones they're hiding. You're going to see real quick why they hid Paul and Thecla. Judah, stand up right here. That's, them pushing that white Jesus has pushed them being at the top and us having to listen to them. That's what white Jesus has done all the way till today. I was like, these dudes have not practiced one man, one woman at all, but they run in our churches and teach us that. I said, when they keep saying that, but they're the ones who have been sleeping with our women this entire time, selling our daughters, selling our women, disrespecting our women, teaching us to do the same thing to our women. The music they put out, they're the ones who decide who we listen to and who we don't listen to. Disrespecting one another, hating each other. That's all part of their outside influences to make us less desirable to our own women. It says, so you are a black Christian. That's like a woman marrying her rapist. The Christians were the ones who set all this up. The Greeks, the Romans, they're the ones that set up all this, made society look like, hey, you don't want to marry your own. You want to marry a Gentile because he can provide for you. Now, a Gentile doesn't always have to be another nation. It can also be someone of our own people who are acting like the Gentiles. It says 2/3 of our own people aren't going to make it because they are in league with the Gentiles. Now, we're going to get into Paul and Thecla real quick. If you look at the Acts right here, this is from my my book here that kind of gives you a whole breakdown of the books that they kept out. Main thing is, why are they keeping these books out? You're going to see real quick why they're keeping out Paul and Thecla. This is the Bible readers' aids. Okay, and it says right here, the Acts, though abounding in extravagances, are superior to the apocryphal Gospels. They are romantic in character and tinged with the Oriental coloring. The principal ones are Acts of Peter and Paul, and the Acts of Paul and Thecla. That's what we're going to read right now. But the Acts of Paul and Thecla. What you just heard about, like I told you ladies before, they want they want our women. They're the backbone of our society. I've seen many of our Hebrew women married to these Gentiles, and they work them like a dog because they know that our women, will go out of their way to take care of their men. That's what's in their spirit. They're great women, and they want our women to, pretty much to desire them and to do things for them that they would have easily done for their Hebrew husbands. But now they're doing the same things for these Gentile men. Now remember, the women are supposed to support their husbands, correct? The Hebrew women need to support their Hebrew husbands. Now, when our Hebrew women are supporting their Gentile husbands, they're doing their job. But is your Gentile man doing what he's supposed to be doing? So many women think that it's about a paycheck, it's about money, it's about what he can give you monetarily in this society. Yeah, that's great and that helps, but the number one job of the man is to lead his family spiritually. So now, is your Gentile husband able to do that for you? Is your Gentile husband able to teach you about the Most High? Is your Gentile husband is he going to be able to raise your children following the ways of the Most High? I'm going to let you know, no, he can't. So now you're doing your job as a woman by being an awesome helpmeet, but now this dude isn't doing his job because he can't. It's impossible for him to because he's not us. So it's a game that these guys have played on our people. And a lot of our women, they think that, it's one man, one woman. I said, it's not that simple. I said, because these men have responsibilities to you. And these other men from these other nations cannot, they can't meet the deal. They can't do it. So they can give you all the monetary things that you want here. Some of them can. I can't say that about all of them. Some of them can. But what happens? But if he can't feed you spiritually. But these laws have made it so you think that they can. Now let's check out Paul and Thecla real quick. I'm going to show you. Yeah, I know. I take a lot of notes, and I've read and written quite a bit of stuff here. Okay, so I know it's not as easy to read, but hey, I wanted to make sure I gave you a chance to kind of see some of the stuff that I have here. Okay, I'm going to start actually on the 6, and you don't have that here, so you're just going to listen to this part. Blessed are those. Well, I'm sorry, Paul. I'm sorry, 5. When Paul entered Onesiphorus' house, there was great joy, the bending of knees in prayer, the breaking of bread, and a proclamation of the word of God concerning self-control and the resurrection, as Paul said. Okay, Paul came to visit this guy, and he's teaching in the city of the Iconians. Okay, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are those who have kept the flesh chaste, for they will become a temple of God. Blessed are those who are self-controlled, for God will speak to them. Blessed are those who have renounced this world, for they will be pleasing to God. Blessed are those who have wives as if they did not have them, for they will be the heirs of God. Blessed are those who have fear of God, for they will become the angels of God. Blessed are those who tremble at the sayings of God, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who have received the wisdom of Jesus Christ, for they will be called sons of the highest. Blessed are those who have kept their baptism, for they will find their rest in the Father and the Son. Now we're here where I'm reading, okay? Blessed are those who have a full understanding of Jesus Christ, for they will be in the light. Blessed are those who have parted, are departed from the shell of this world because of the love of God, for they will judge angels and be blessed at the right hand of the Father. Blessed are those who show mercy, for they will receive mercy and will not see the bitter day of judgment. Blessed are the bodies of the virgins, for they will be pleasing to God and will not lose the reward for their chastity. For the word of the Father will be an accomplished act of salvation for them on the day of his Son, and they will receive an eternal rest. Now, virgin doesn't mean always a person who has not had sex. That's not, it also means like a young lady, things like that. All right. So now let's continue with 7. While Paul was saying these things in the midst of the church in on Onesiphorus' house, those are the people. The church here is referring to the people, the Hebrews, the people that were coming to listen to him, not a certain building. Okay. There was a certain virgin named Thecla, daughter of Theoclia, and engaged to a man named Thamyris, who was sitting at the window of the house next door. Day and night, Thecla heard what Paul said about chastity, and she did not budge from the window, but was drawn to faith with great joy. Yet, when she saw many wives and virgins going in to see Paul, she also wanted to be found worthy to stand in Paul's presence, to hear the word of Christ. For she had not yet seen what Paul looked like, but had only heard his word. So this woman here is just being enthralled with Paul just by his words. Has nothing to do with what he looks like, but her spirit is making a connection with Paul. And see, a Hebrew woman is going to do that. It's going to make a connection with the correct Hebrew man. You're going to get that connection, and you're going to be drawn to that person. And it's not marriage is not always just about sex. Okay, it's about that spiritual connection that only Hebrews can have with other Hebrews. Okay, let's continue. Since she would not rise up from the window, her mother sent word to Thamyris. He gladly came, as if already taking her to their wedding. Then Thamyris said to Theoclia, "Where is my Thecla?" Theoclia replied, "I have some news to tell you, Thamra. Thecla has not gotten up from the window for 3 days and nights, not even to eat or drink, but she is gazing out as if watching a festival. For she has grown attached to a foreign man who is teaching various deceitful words, so that I am amazed at how the virgin's sense of modesty can be so badly disturbed." Now, see, this guy's he's a Hebrew. He's a foreigner to these other Gentiles, and how she is reacting, how she is enthralled with this man, and she hasn't left for 3 days. She's been listening to everything that he has to say. Now let's check this out. 9. Let me see here. Okay. Thamyris, this man is stirring up the city of the Iconians, as well as your own Thecla. For all the wives and youth are going in to see him, learning from him that you must fear the one and only God and live a chaste life. Even my daughter is bound to the window like a spider, seized by a new desire and fearful passion through his words, for she gazes at the words he speaks. And so the virgin has been captured. But you come and speak with her, for she is your fiance. So she is, like I said, she's into this man, into his words. She's drawn to him, and she wants nothing to do with the world at this point. Okay. Now this is what these Gentiles know, that when the real men of the Most High are raised back up, they're about to lose everything. They're about to lose our lands. They're about to lose our women, because the only reasons they're with them at this point is because they set up all these laws to raise themselves up, so that they make them more desirable to our women. And that's actually even what was happened right here. So before Thecla, listened to Paul, she was already engaged to this Gentile. I'm sure they were in love and everything else, but just that quick, as a real Hebrew comes in and starts teaching the truth, everything is turned upside down. Let's continue. 10. So Thamyris went in, loving Thecla, yet fearing that she had gone mad. He said to her, "Thecla, my future wife, why are you sitting like this? What kind of mad passion has overwhelmed you? Turn around to see your Thamyris and be ashamed." And her mother was also saying the same things. Child, why do you sit like this, looking down without answering, as if you were paralyzed? And they were weeping bitterly, Thamris for missing out on a wife, Thecla for a child, and the servants for a mistress. And the household was thrown into a great confusion because of their mourning. Yet while these things were happening, Thecla did not turn aside, but continued gazing toward the word spoken by Paul. Now, what did it say right there? It says, Thamris has missed out on a wife. He's missed out on our women. That's what they're concerned with. They're concerned with being with our women. That's why they set this up. So that our women didn't have other options. So they were forced to go with these other nations, to go with these Gentiles. That's why this is all set up like this. See how this is all working. And this is going on during Paul's time, and it's no different than today. Let's continue with 11. Remember, why do you think this book is hidden? Because they already know. 11. Thamris ran outside and went to the street and began observing those who were going in to see Paul and those coming out. He saw two men having a bitter quarrel, and he said to them, Men, tell me who you are, and who is this one who is inside with you, leading astray the youths and deceiving the virgins by telling them not to get married, but to remain as they are. I promise to reward you handsomely if you tell me about him, for I am the leading citizen of the city. See, this dude's, pulling rank. You know who I am? I'm the leading citizen. Tell me what's going on. You know, he said he's telling these people to remain chaste, to separate from the Gentiles, stay away from them, because he knows that they can't teach you. But they set it up, every one man, one woman. He's telling you it's better for you to be with nobody if you're going to be with one of them. 13. Thamris said to them, Men, come to my house and enjoy some refreshment with me. They went off to a lavish dinner with ample wine, a great abundance, and a splendid spread. Thamris was plying with them with drink because he loved Thecla and wanted to have her as his wife. See that right there? He wanted our women. He wanted to have Thecla as his wife, okay? Over dinner, Thamris said, Men, tell me what he teaches so I can understand it. For I am in no small agony over Thecla, because she is in love with a stranger, and I am being deprived of my marriage. See, she's already fallen in love with this man. Hasn't even seen him, and fell in love with him. And he's upset because now he can't have our women. He can't have that Hebrew woman that he wanted, that he desired. Because, he thought that his money was going to, get him everything he wanted, get him access to our women. But when the true word starts to come out, it starts to do something to, our people. It starts to get them to understand, their worth, and that they are the true people of the Most High, and that they need to separate and be holy. 14. Demas and Hermogenes, whatever is it, said, Make him stand trial before the governor, Castilius, for leading the crowds astray with the new teaching of the Christians. Then he will destroy him, and you will have Thecla as your wife. And we will teach you that this resurrection, which he claims is about to happen, has already occurred in the children we have had. When Thamris heard these things from them, he was filled with jealousy and anger. And that's what's going to happen. That's what's already going to happen to these people. They're going to be filled with jealousy and anger when they realize who we are and how we're going to be taking our land back and our women back. Early the next morning, he went off to the house of Onesiphorus with the leaders, public servants, and a large crowd carrying clubs. And he said to Paul, You have corrupted the city of the Iconians and my own fiancée, so she no longer desires me. See that? That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make it so that our women do not desire you, even though you've made all these laws to put you on top, to make you more desirable. You're not going to be able to contend with the word of the Most High. When the word comes out, everyone will get back in line. Everyone will get back into their original positions because it's in our spirit. So she's not going to desire this Gentile anymore. And he's all upset about that. Let me read it again. You have corrupted the city of the Iconians and my own fiancé, so that she no longer desires me. Come, we are going to the governor Castilius. And the entire crowd was saying, take the magician away, for he has corrupted all our wives. And the crowds were persuaded. See that? He's making it so none of these Hebrew women, none of these even Gentile women at this point probably didn't want to be with their with their husbands anymore. Once they start to hear the real truth, they didn't want anything to do with these men anymore. Now you see why they have to make these laws. Now you have to see why they have to say, hey, you can only have one wife and that's it. Leave the rest of them for us. Because if they really know who you are, none of these women are going to want to be with us. See, now you're starting to see why they set up. Right? The Greeks set this up, the Romans set this up, and the revived Roman Empire did the same thing when they got over here. Nah, man, you got to make these men undesirable so nobody wants them, because if when they get awakened, oh my gosh, everyone's going to want to be with them. No one's going to want to be with us anymore. Bingo. That's right. 16. When he stood before the governor's judgment seat, Thamyris called out with a loud voice, O proconsul, we do not know where this man comes from, but he does not allow virgins to be married. Let him tell you why he is teaching these things. But Dema and Hermogenes said to Thamyris, say that he is a Christian, and you will destroy him. But the governor had already decided what to do. He called Paul and asked him, who are you? And what are you teaching? For they are making no small accusation against you. Paul raised his voice and said, if today I am to defend what I teach, listen to me, O proconsul. The living God, the God of vengeance, the jealous God, the God who stands in need of nothing. This God has sent me to provide people with salvation by dragging them away from corruption and impurity and every pleasure and death, that they may no longer sin. This is also why God sent his own child, whom I proclaim, teaching that everyone must place their hope in him. For he alone has felt sympathy for this world while it was going astray, that people may no longer fall under judgment, but have faith and the fear of God, along with the knowledge of holiness and the love of truth. If then I am teaching what God has revealed to me, O proconsul, have I done anything wrong? When the governor heard these things, he ordered Paul to be bound and taken off to prison until he had greater leisure to listen to him more carefully. Okay, hold on here. There we go. I'm only going to go to about 19 or 20. But that night, Thecla removed her bracelets and gave them to the gatekeeper. And when the door was opened for her, she went away to the prison. She then gave a silver mirror to the prison guard and came in to Paul, sitting at his feet. She heard about the majestic character of God. Paul showed no sign of fear, but was filled with the boldness of the Most High. And Thecla's faith increased as she was kissing Paul's bonds. But members, of Thecla's own household, along with Thamyris, were looking for her, searching for her on the roads as if she were lost. Then one of the gatekeeper's fellow slaves disclosed that she had gone out at night. They examined the gatekeeper, who told them, she has gone to the foreigner in prison. They went out just as he told them and found her, in a manner of speaking. Now, this part, you kind of figure out what's going on right here. Bound together with Paul in affection. Coming out from there, they roused the crowds and revealed what had happened to the governor. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but people are pretty pissed right after this happens. And you'll see kind of like a little bit about what's going to happen next. I'm not going to read the entire story, but you can look it up. But hey, this dude, I mean, if Thecla was probably already engaged with this guy, more than likely they'd already been together. Gentiles ain't into waiting until they get married to have, intercourse or whatever else. So if they were already together and these guys are together now, Most High is calling her to be with Paul, calling her to leave these Gentiles and come with Paul. So like I said, there's other writings and other information that they've been hiding. They hid this because they knew that when the Most High sends his men and they're telling you the truth, that other people are going to be attracted to them and going to want to be with them because they're spiritually connected. And the way that these Gentiles have set this entire system up is to make them more desirable because all they have are these possessions here. They don't have any spiritual connection. They don't have anything that they can offer our people besides these physical comforts. Check a look at 20. We're going to read a little bit of 20 right here because it's kind of important, very important. He commanded Paul to be brought before the judgment seat. But Thecla was rolling around on the place where Paul had been teaching while sitting in the jail. The governor ordered her to be brought to the judgment seat as well. She came gladly, filled with joy. When Paul was brought forward again, the crowd began crying out more fervently, "He is a magician, away with him." But the governor was glad to hear Paul speak of the holy deeds of Christ. When the governor had consulted his advisers, he summoned Thecla and said, "Why do you not marry Thamyris in accordance with the law of the Iconians?" You see this? This is all their laws and everything else is their laws. Why don't you get married according to the laws of the Iconians? See, as the vast majority of us have only been married through the laws of these Gentiles. That's another video for another time. Okay? It says, "Why do you not marry Thamyris in accordance with the law of the Iconians?" But she stood gazing at Paul. When she did not answer, her mother Theoclia cried out, "Burn the lawless one. Burn the one who will not be a bride. Burn her in the midst of the theater. Then all of the wives who have been taught by this one will fear." This mom turned against her own daughter in order to support the law of the Iconians. So like I said, just because someone looks like you, if they've thrown their lot in with the other nations, they're going to be sometimes your own worst enemy. She's telling them to burn her own daughter because she won't marry this Gentile now. You see that? I'm not going to read the rest of the story. You can check it out on your own. This is from my Lost Scriptures book. But this is why these kinds of books are hidden. When the truth comes out, it's not going to make families stronger. If you're called to this, you're going to be separated. This is why it's not as easy as it's all one man, one woman, and that's it. Or the Most High deals with every individual differently. This woman she was following the rules. It was going to be one man, one woman first. She was about to get married to this Gentile and live happily ever after until she got exposed to the Word, until she got exposed to the real man of the Most High. And then you see how everything got turned upside down. See, they don't want this kind of information out. And that's why I said, when we are restored, we're going back to our Hebrew customs. And the Most High is calling people out right now. You know, I'm going to end up really quick on a couple of points. It's like I said, my wife is a great woman, just like many of the Hebrew women are. Your job, the Most High has given you, is to be a helpmeet to your husband. The key is this: who is your husband? Is your husband a man of the Most High? Or is he a Gentile? See, like I told my wife, and I told many women the same thing. I said, it doesn't merely matter who you're married to. You would be a great wife to any man that you're married to because it's in your spirit to be a great wife. The true point is, who are you married to? If you're married to a man of the Most High, he can then teach you the ways of the Most High, and you come in under him, and then you're doing the will of the Most High. All the things that you're doing to be a great wife, you're now doing in the service to the Most High. If you're married to a Gentile, and you're still being a great wife, doing what you're supposed to be doing, but he cannot teach you the ways of the Most High. That's why right now the Most High has his word flooding the internet in order for people to hear the truth. Because like I said, he's going to be moving very soon. And this is just kind of a chance to kind of see a little bit as to what's coming in the near future. And how we're going to be judged by the Most High. But what did we do when we were here? I take a look here at Jeremiah 9 and 23 and 24. Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches. Those would be the Gentiles, glorying in the things that they've done here. This is one thing that they cannot do. But let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord. Only the Hebrews can teach this. And then the Hebrew women are going to support their men when they're doing this. However, the Most High sets it up for each individual person, that is between the Most High and that person. But if you're not married to someone who can teach you any of this stuff, then, I said that's a different video for a different time. But if the Most High is calling you, at least start to follow him as best as you can at this point. Like I said, I just don't believe in all these things. Are just as far as like everything is just cut in stone. This is how it's going to be, and for sure, because like I said, we're missing a whole lot of information. So I'm just kind of sharing a little bit of how I perceive some of these things, okay, and what I've been taught and what I've been shown. It's not necessarily that it's a disagreement or anything else with other brethren. I said it's just I just don't believe that's all going to be this way or all going to be that way. Because like I said, the Most High deals with all of us on an individual basis. And we've all been going through different things in order to prepare us for these times right now. But you got to make sure, you got to see how many men are there out there that are able to teach you. Like I said, it's very difficult. I said that's why it's hard to sit there and say, because things are always, you can't be so absolute with so many different things. But that's just me. There are some things definitely we can be absolute about, like this is our land. I said Most High is renewing us. The Bible is ours. The Book of Mormon is ours. I said this is our history bringing out. I can be for sure about those kinds of things. But things as far as that the Gentiles have now interjected themselves in, I said they set up this whole one man, one woman doctrine and pushed that on us so that they can have access to our women. Because while they were teaching that, they were also going out of our way to put us at the bottom of the barrel so that our own women didn't want to listen to us. So that even now that we're being raised back up, many of our own people are our worst enemies and don't want to listen to anything we have to say. But that all goes back to society and how society has been set up. When he teaches you, when your man teaches you, when the Most High sends the correct man into your life to teach you, that it's going to turn everything upside down. And these Gentiles already know that. That's why they went out of their way to hide who we are. And they went ahead and took our books, and they took the authority of our books and gave it to themselves in order to make themselves more desirable. But that's being taken away now. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother, who is wisdom, who is the Holy Spirit. Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. Shalom, family.